Richard Gutjahr is a fan. Richard Gutjahr is a fan. Richard Gutjahr is a fan. Richard Gutjahr is a fan.
Richard Gutjahr, one of the most talked about names in the last few weeks on social media.
He is actually a German journalist, CNN trained in Washington.
Er ist verheiratet mit einer gewissen Dr. Ein Hilf. In dem Artikel habe ich sie genannt, den Engel mit den Eisaugen.
You must be wondering who this pretty looking young woman is. You cannot make this shit up. The daughter of Richard Gutjahr.
Let me tell you something, little girl. You're a bitch. And your father does not love you. And we were talking about the fake Munich attack, the fake Nice attack, among so many fake attacks. Richard Gutjahr is a traitor to humanity. Expose him for being the liar and the treasonous bastard that he is.
Richard Gutjahr, you are done. Watching you go down will be fun. Richard Gutjahr.
Just a quick message for our boy Richie. Richie. Because I know you're watching this, Rich. And just so you understand, if you're going to proceed with your actions, you do know the repercussions, don't you?
Richard Gutjahr lügt, seine Tochter Tamina Stoll lügt. Teilt das Video, macht es öffentlich und unterstützt meine Arbeit.
This is a war. If you're listening to this, Richard Gutjahr, welcome to your hell.
This family has no shame, people. This is a traitorous criminal family.
This is going to follow them around for the rest of their stupid lives.
Wow.
Wow. I never thought, I've never been so, I felt so badly about standing on a stage, but maybe it helps one or the other of you, and maybe it will also help myself a little bit to talk about this. Thanks for coming today. This is not an easy topic for you, especially not on Friday morning, so I appreciate that you're coming here regardless. I want to talk to you about 2 very hard years. Summer 1.5 years ago, this video was created. Some of the others might have seen it. It's called From Nizza to München, Anatomie of a Shit-Tsunami. So it started in Nizza in a sabbatical for the national holiday. We rented a room at the promenade of Nice, and it was a beautiful summer evening until this truck came. And the people who know me know that I never put away my phone anyway, so I had it in my hand when the truck came, and this is how this video was created. At the time, I didn't put it online. I also didn't Periscope it or Facebook Live, broadcast it on Facebook Live, because something told me that you don't do that. This is not good in such a situation if you don't know what is going on and what will happen next. I sent the video to my TV broadcasting station. I'm a free journalist for the ARD, and then things started turning.
Hier ist das erste deutsche Fernsehen mit dem Nachtmagazin.
This is the night magazine in the ARD. Shots at Côte d'Azur, at the Promenade des Anglais in Nice, directly at the Mediterranean. Late last night, there has been a mass panic. Agencies think there might have been a terroristic attack. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. All of this just happened around 23 o'clock. So information are tumbling in, and questions too. A RD co-worker is accidentally there, Richard Gutjahr. Good evening. 8 days later,
deutsche Fernsehen mit der Tagesschau.
Munich is rocked by a killing spree. One or more attackers are supposed to have killed one or more people. My coworker Richard Gutjahr is at this mall. Richard Gutjahr, what can you tell us? I live and work in Munich. So when the call came, something happened. I immediately went there. I was not very far from the Olympia Mall. So this is why I was one of the first journalists at the scene. We were broadcasting the whole evening as well as we could. And I thought, something feels wrong. Because after Nice, online and on Twitter and on other social media, I saw that people started to research about me and my family. It started with two versions of the same video. One of them was edited and shortened, and one was the raw material with a sound. And in that sound, you could also hear my family scream. This has been dissected pretty accurately through a network research. Like many people worked together to analyze this, and found out the people who were in the video. And so then it was very quick to make a connection to my family and to see that my wife is Jewish and that I have a daughter who lives in the USA and studies there. It's very bizarre. Her name is different. I don't follow her on Twitter or Facebook, but nevertheless, someone made the connection somehow. And the rest is history. It was only a few days and weeks, and then a shitstorm was rolling over us, which started just like every shitstorm does. You don't have any idea what will come next. Everyone knows the Streisand effect. Who knows the Streisand effect? Never feed the trolls. So that means that if I want that people who don't know anything about this topic, that it should stay that way. So I shouldn't react to that. I should just sit still. So our first strategy was to say no, go offline. Just let the storm pass. Don't interact with these debates. The problem is, and I only know this today, that the Streisand effect is about 15 years old, and it doesn't happen like that today. We live in a post-Streisand era where you make things worse if you don't explain yourself. But let's come to that later. In the meantime, and only a few weeks went by, especially in the bathroom of the internet, YouTube, especially regarding the comment section there. So truthers, hoaxers, and conspiracy theorists assembled and started a frenzy of who could posit the most perverse theories. And this is how I turned from someone who just a bystander to someone who helped create this to the mastermind behind all this. And at the high times there were 1,200 videos about me and my family online. And regarding today, so all of this is 1.5 years ago, and we found a similar effect in Florida on February 14, So it took about 15 minutes until the first hoaxer truther video popped up on YouTube, and it worked exactly like with the same script, the same people, the same theories, the same heads, just replaced myself and put in the Parkland students. The whole thing has a system. You pick out the weakest of the weak, those who were close to death, who maybe even died. It is doubted that these people ever lived. Kids who died are supposed to be casted actors and belong to a New World Order conspiracy, and everything is financed by George Soros, the Bilderbergs, and the Freemasons. And just like with me, they picked one victim that is supposed to be close to the Secret Service, and always with these conspiracy theories, one piece is enough to make a huge story out of everything. So one of the speakers for the Parkland students is the son of an ex-FBI agent, so this is of course what created the narrative. Few weeks after the attacks, this was the most searched terms for my names. I don't want to bore you with things like Facebook and how they don't delete stuff. You all know the problems that you can report the ugliest videos, but days later you get the message, no, everything is compliant with our community standards. Google or YouTube, it is different. They have a very advanced system how you can flag videos. And actually I did try to flag the worst videos about my daughter and about other things for removal from the net. And I have to add that if you check the slander tag on YouTube, it's a whole labyrinth. It's a telephone hotline where you have to say numbers all the time, and until you actually reach the form to fill out. This has been corrected in the meantime, but a few years ago it was a torture to even flag one video, and I spent a whole weekend flagging 60 videos. A bit later you get such a message from YouTube. You are lucky if it's in English, usually it's Cyrillic or I don't know, Thai maybe, I don't even know. If you use Google Translate to translate this back, it turns out that here also no community standards have been violated. So next thing I tried is not going to the slander route, but instead trying to flag it as copyright violation. The pictures taken from the Facebook pages of my daughter, my wife, or myself, you don't want to give them to people for YouTube videos. And actually YouTube did react very quickly to these copyright violations, because this is where they fear them, because it's about a lot of money. But once they have been removed in a short time, they sent me this mail saying the person who owns the video denies that there has been a copyright violation, and also we are of the opinion, why don't you just talk to each other? Here's your respective phone numbers and addresses. In the next escalation, videos now pop up with your phone number and your home address. And of course, I thought I put in my real address, because if I send it into Google, then they will use it for verification. That is, this is actually me and they should take me seriously. So I was pretty naive by giving them my real address. Okay, now case 3, how you can flag a video times 60. So this time it's about data privacy. So this is what I got as an answer this time. We can't find any data privacy violations in here. So my coworker, who's going to talk about a law perspective from this, I don't want to take his topics, but later we even talked to, if once the NetzDG law was passed, Google sent us this email and said, YouTube doesn't belong to Google. So the second paragraph, they go even further and say, it is unclear whether YouTube is even a social network, and maybe the NetzDG law doesn't even apply. I don't have the imagination to imagine what people have to deal with who really lost a loved one and have to try taking these videos down and getting back into their life. I tried to collect all these emails that Google sent me and to see, and this is how I want to represent this. So if Google is not interested in helping the victims, the mill is going on. There's more and more bizarre theories. There are super bad things that are being said. So not only in the Nice and Munich cases I'm the conspirator, but instead I'm behind everything in the whole world. So the next step of escalation, because we only talk about the net, right? So now there is people who are encouraged to take everything they see in the net and create products from it. So at the end of the year 2016, I was confronted with the first books where our story was using a lot of imagination was talked about. Some books are still available on Amazon, but I'll talk about this more later. Doxing is also a term that I didn't know about. This is if you look at your victim closely enough so that you can gather a lot of private information and then can spread this private information online. And so it happened that the virtual world turned into the real world. You get packages, products you didn't want, mobile phone contracts. You can just send them to people who know the address of. So, and you know it takes a lot of time to get out of these contracts again and send back all the garbage that you get. Since Google really didn't want to help us, they even gave me the helpful tip: you should really go to the police, Mr. Gutjahr. I did exactly that. To make it short, I just took the 12 worst case and went to the police for them. So I spent 2 times 6 hours with the police in Munich and 6 hours of witness reports, and to make it short, nothing happened. Weeks later, a first letter from an agency, you recognize it by the yellow envelope. So I was thinking, now the cavalry is arriving. Do you want to know what the first official letter was? It's a letter about missing information on his website. If you can't read it, so I removed my private address from my blog because the police asked me to, and now this is a letter telling me that this is against the law. Then, after a while, a few letters from the district attorney actually arrived, and this is just a little selection. All of them say that nothing will be done. And if you want to know why, then sometimes it was a bit hairy because people just were hiding behind fake names and avatars. But more interesting was that not all of them did that. Like some used their full name to spread the hate into the net. And even despite that, people were not accessed. And the reason for that was...
And in one case, one said that, yes, this is my Facebook account. Yes, I sent it from my computer, but who typed this? I don't know. So many people here, I can't remember their name. So nothing happened. Prosecution was stopped. This was a moment where I thought, no, I stop believing into anything. After the platforms and other institutions just didn't care about it. I thought about logging off everything, but don't get me wrong, I had a lot of shitstorms, but if I look every morning at my smartphone and I'm getting a lot of hate mails and die and go into the concentration camps, and this does something to you after a few weeks or months. And this was a moment when I thought that I know. And then on Facebook, after of all, there came a message, "Hello, Richard." And this person turns out to be Lenny from Newtown, Connecticut. And this person is a family father who 6 years ago had a shooting at an elementary school in the US, lost his 6-year-old son. And since then, I'm in contact with Lenny. We chat a lot, we talk a lot. Last night. And I asked Lenny, how can this be? What did this do to you? By choice, I didn't show his photo out of respect, but you find it on the internet. But I think you don't have to show it here on the stage. So I only took the audio and not the video.
People are going to believe what they want to believe. But the online platforms are the ones that are spreading this hate content. It reaches millions and millions of people. So in the early days, I described this thought virus like a small brush fire, and it's burning and it's burning, and it'll go in every direction. So the only way we can this fire is to remove the content so that it has no oxygen to burn, because it will continue spreading. It's just what it does. These hate ideas spread on their own.
Lenny kämpft seit 5
Lenny
Jahren.
fights in 5 years, or for 5 years, against everything I showed you, and even more. It's interestingly they are the same people. So that's that's why he contacted me, and he said, "Richard, you don't even know what's ahead of you, but there isn't a wait. There's an exit." Lenny said to me, "It will be hard, there will be a lot of tears, but if you do it now, then a lot of things on the internet will look different in a year." And so, following his advice, I decided to fight back.
Lenny hat mich Lenny hat mir vor allem gesagt,
Lenny said to me that, look, that you fight back at least against the toughest guys there, with the hardest cases, and look for someone who knows something about law. And that's what I did. I called the lawyer Udo Vetter, and he said, "Yeah, it's not my expertise, but I have a colleague who is ideal for you, who's an expert in media law. He had a lot of prominent cases and was successful with them, and said, you have to call him. And that's what I did. And yeah, you never stop learning, so I decided to not come here without my lawyer. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Markus Kompa.
Morgen.
Good morning. Here's the middle, yeah. Richard asked me to say something about media law, how you can defend yourself, what special opponents you have. The opponents are mostly, they think that they don't do anything wrong, that everything they said is covered by freedom of speech. We all know that in the Article 5 of the German Constitution guarantees the freedom of speech, but in the Article 2 of already said that there are some boundaries. Freedom of speech covers opinions, which is subjective meaning, agreement, sympathy, political thesis. So whatever you can have, that you have a counter opinion, and something different is a fact, something objective you can measure. You can always qualify such an expression as true or false. That's a theory, and even wrong facts are covered by freedom of speech, but not if the facts are about person. There are in the law that says that slandering and wrong facts about persons are wrong. And there's another article which if I say some facts about a person, I have to prove them and not the person that I say it about. And that leads to, in the civil law, this is also true, and this is about general personal rights. This is not violated whenever you say something wrong, but already if you just hint at it, if you say a rhetorical question, that's already enough. Well, you can oppose that. Well, you just said yes. You can always say your opinion, and this is just an opinion about facts. It's just always interpretation of facts. Yeah, this has some true meaning, but.
Right. So if I just talk about like secret services or something I don't have access to, I just people just don't believe me if I just put something online. So instead, I say, no, I put something online. Can't be serious. So the law says you just can't tell anything about anything without losing seriosity. But there has to be a way to say a suspicion, and there have been rules for press, for journalists, but they also apply to private people. And the most important rule here says there should be an actual event that you speculate about. So here you could say it is weird that someone has been at 2 of these events within 8 days, but can you deduce from that he has previous knowledge from a secret service? But if you have that suspicion, then before you publish it, you have to research it. And that is what the law says. You have to go down every avenue to find to find and to prove this suspicion. And it doesn't end with Google. Like, as a journalist or a private person, you have to research this thoroughly before going public with this. The absolute minimum with this is contacting the person and confronting them with this suspicion and giving them the option to close that suspicion. And even then, it is not allowed to destroy their reputation and just positing this from one point of view. Like, if you have any ameliorating details, you cannot ignore those. And if you do all this, then you have maybe a way of talking about a suspicion, but even then you're at risk. So online, if you're being insulted or fall under these suspicions, then you should go to a lawyer who will send a cease and desist letter. And these usually was harder before because people were hiding behind pseudonyms, but these days it's easier. But so your lawyer will send a cease and desist letter, and you will have to pay for that. But it's a possibility to close a case quickly and easily. And then the next thing is a Verfügung. And this is the next thing you can do. You don't have to go to court, but if they ignore that, then it goes directly to court without you doing anything. And if that happens, then they have to remove their content from the net without waiting. So it even says on that letter. And there's also, like, if you don't agree with this Verfügung, then you have to pay 250. With this decree, you have to pay 250,000 euros and spend up to 8 days in jail. So what Richard did, the mistake that Richard did, is he only started with this process after a few months. And at least a few of those suspicions that were posited and published weren't attackable anymore because they were too old. Okay, then you can go to court, but this can take years until it actually takes hold. So we saw 3 different types of opponents. It was private people who had fundamentalist views. We had right-wing populist publishers who are very interested in rehashing this topic. And the third group was platforms like Google. And you heard all the relevant stuff about this already. So let's talk about the private people. That was like people like so-called Reichsbürger or people from the right-wing spectrum who are living in thought bubbles and who were very inaccessible intellectually. There was one guy who said in Nice, it wasn't people there, dead people, it was actually puppets placed by the government. So it's very hard to actually communicate with these people. Also, we had people from the left-wing extremist part who were in the peace movement, and they were thinking like, does Gutjahr promote terrorism? So these people I usually called and talked to them. You cannot do this. Please remove this, and we just forget about it. No decree, no cease and desist, and this worked in almost all cases except one. So the one guy was very nice, but 3 days later he sent an email, I cannot do this because freedom of speech. He also ignored the decree. So then he had to pay a fee, then he took a lawyer, and he just let it stay online for a few months, and then we just sent an email to the provider, and 1 hour later the blog was gone, because once they know about it, they have to do something as well, otherwise they are also compelled by the law. So these private people usually were from poor backgrounds, and these court cases are usually very expensive, so you can't really take a lot of money from them. So even if you win the court case, then the person going to court has to pay. So it was good that Richard had insurance, and I told Richard, this cannot continue. Please let people insult you who are rich. Richard is a nice client, so he did exactly that. you saw this image of the COP publishing service. They had a blog posting, and we didn't attack that blog posting because it was half a year old, so this is like past. But then the COP publishing service created a book from this blog post. So they had a yearbook, which was very successful. COP Publishing House is a store that has like 12 million euros revenue. They send like 25,000 books a year. And this book is one of their bestsellers. It sells like 65,000 copies. So Richard wrote a review of this book and said, please like my review so we can show it to them. And then a few people got mad, among them the author of the book. And then they talked about their in-house YouTube stars. One of their partner was the Compact magazine, and they wrote an article, and there was an expert for press law, and he said this has to be true, because if Gutjahr was innocent, then he would have called his lawyer already and would have sued the COP publishing house. Well, that's what we did.
Ja, dann hat sich erstmal Compact eine Einzelfall.
So, Compact got a cease and desist. Everyone came to Cologne because the press was all annoyed already, because we all asked all these YouTube stars, especially the speaker of the Tagesschau news magazine, and so she actually didn't live in Germany anymore, so we didn't know where to send the cease and desist to, but suddenly her lawyer called, and then we could just send it to the lawyer, and then the problem was solved. So Compact was a very strong opponent, and we got to know a lot of people who we sent, like we all won these cease and desist stories from Nice, and then the last decision from Compact and the case against Compact came last week, and they already spent like tens of thousands of euros, so it's almost finished. And we didn't talk publicly about this court case because we wanted to stay under the radar and not feed the trolls, but then we decided to take, we didn't want to do this passive thing anymore. So Richard came forward with a tech talk, and we flamed around a bit, and we got to close the rights to the Compact publishing house's domain. So this provided a lot of noise and sound. The same day they paid us, and then they were very angry online, and they were like, oh, this is against freedom of the press, and because they believed that if I got the rights to their domains, I could actually disable their whole website. And to be honest, like if I have this right, then I can only prevent others from getting the domain, but I can actually not use it myself, and also I can not really take it away from them because they need it. But ever since this went through the net, then people had respect, and suddenly all the cease and desist letters were not ignored anymore. And whereas Richard, ever since then, people in the German network were quiet.
Yeah, third group were YouTube. Richard already talked about the most important thing. The Google part is American understanding of press rights. If you fight against Google, they have a lot of lawyers, and if you want to bring them in front of court, and even the assistants have a PhD title, and they have the best lawyers you can find, but even they are just humans, and you can win against them. I just did this recently. And so Google didn't do anything, and we couldn't afford, Richard couldn't afford to fight against Google in front of a court. But once we sent the cease and desist letters, they understood, and then, at least for Germany, they blocked it. The videos are not taken down, but you can't see them from Germany without a VPN. From Austria, you can still see them. Especially in Hamburg, you have the tendency to delete this more internationally. And now we have a new law, and that's DG, and I and Richard are opponents of it. But there is one advantage: we now have an address where we can send our cease and desist letters, and we can through them. Yes, that's from my side. Where is he? Yeah.
Okay. Last line of defense.
That's my last line of defense. Think about it hard. Thank you, Markus. Thank you.
Ich möchte euch nicht.
I don't want to let you go home without picking up what happened afterwards. The story isn't finished yet, but especially the story about compact publishing. There were a lot of reactions on the internet and some of the usual suspects. I want to show you one of them. It's Manu, and he immediately expressed his that he didn't understand it. And as we all understand, Mr. Gutjahr has tried to seize the domain of compact publishing, which I find a tough thing. I show you here. That's a compact page, you know it. And there's a tweet of Richard Gutjahr. I can show you, and here is the official tweet by Richard Gutjahr, and it says that now I've seized the domain of Compact Online in front of the court in Potsdam, and then compacts of left-leaning assholes, sorry for my French, but I can't describe it otherwise, are very great. What do you want for the domain? I want to redirect it to Pro Asyl or Sea-Watch. It's incredible what a kind of fans he has here summed up. Everybody kind of has its opinion, but it's just an agenda. You can't say that. It's my speculation that I should be careful, but I speculate that the man is being paid to clean up not left extreme part. And this video, this small ode to the humanity, was 1.5 hours long, and I couldn't trust my ears when suddenly his friend came in and the same video, and now they have a new enemy, and guess who it? That's you. Do you know? Kendra? Republika, you think that it's a fair in Berlin about media and hip stories and everything on the internet, but it's from beginning to the end government directed propaganda from the system to the system, and you have to know it. It's not, you don't see it anywhere if you buy a ticket. And after we found someone at YouTube who listened to us, it wasn't that difficult for us to block one or another of the international conspirators and to harm his honor. What preceded this video, we only have audio because this YouTube channel doesn't exist anymore. We heard the overtruther living in Melbourne, Australia, PK Truth.
I'm hurt. I'm fucking hurt. I've spent so much time on this channel. I put out these videos exposing Richard Gutjahr. I got a strike, as people, have seen my video yesterday. I made a video showing that, and I woke up in the morning, and in the middle of the night there was another strike. He actually he claimed 2 copyrights on 2 videos, and then not long after that, my channel was terminated, and he hit me with another strike on a video I didn't even realise was there. The one I exposed his daughter. Oh no, this is crazy. It's like your house has been burnt down.
Und so musste ich mir neue Visitenkarten.
And so I had to print new cards.
Schon wieder.
Again.
Das Interessante aber, und das wusste ich vorher.
And the interesting thing I didn't know before is that the spiraling of hate and can also be turned around if you can fight against a leading person, then they are hurt, then you can reverse the process of hate. And I couldn't trust my ears. A few days after I did my TED Talk, the people started to, even tough guys wrote me and said that they deleted their videos about me.
Deswegen,
that's why my very great large tip: if you know someone where something similar happened, don't wait too long. Wait a little bit can be good, so it cleans up itself. But afterwards, identify the leaders and fight against them with everything you have. This doesn't solve the problems that there is still a narrative which a lot of my friends, not my best friends, but a lot of people I know in my private life come to me, and the book was read very often, and they say to me, I have read the book and I don't really believe it, but and this if is very slowly going into the and everywhere through the society, and we have to identify the elephant in the room, the fake news. It doesn't work to put a sticker with fake news on it. This doesn't really work, because to say that that the elephant, the pink elephant doesn't exist, you have to bring the elephant into the room, and this enforces the image of the pink elephant. And I talked about it with a scientist who read about, who studied about it, and he
just saying that something is false
gave me the
does
following
almost
tip.
nothing to change your memory, because what you remember is the claim and not that little label of false. So you can think of our memory as kind of being the story, and then all you've done is add a little tag to the story that says false. And that's not actually doing much. That's a pretty peripheral part of the memory, and it's really easily lost over time, whereas the key information from the story is likely to stick around. You have to replace that story. So you have to put new content in it. You can't just label it as false. You have to replace the narrative and come up with a new version of the story that can go into memory.
Also die beste Möglichkeit.
Well, the best possibility to get a pink elephant out of the heads of people is to not just use a sticker, but which says that it is fake, but you have to replace it with another elephant and create a new narrative, and that's the only possibility to reach the people. So, second tip: create an alternative story. Don't just let the old story be there and say no. No is an abstract. It's the first thing we forget after a few days, and only the active story stays in your mind, in your memory. And that's what I did. And last year I went to the stage. It took me a lot of willpower. Did a TED Talk in Marrakesh, which had the topic trolls and haters, and that was the right decision, I think. And I should have done this much earlier. And there's the third problem: YouTube doesn't really have any interest in helping us, because even with these videos they make a lot of money. I don't want to say that it is their priority, but it's also not their priority to not do it. I talked with Brian Soley, who wrote a book about it, which was published a few weeks ago, and it's called Engaged, and I asked him how he explains the hate and how to act against it.
Even have the extent of knowledge of how many followers on Facebook and Instagram exist in Russian bot territory. And so right now they're trying to figure out, well, all of this conspiracy theories and bot networks are making us a lot of money and we're returning shareholder value like crazy. How much of a priority does it need to be? But I think at the same time it's an opportunity cost and how much we're stealing or robbing from society as a result. And I think that any kind of social wellness program that a company might need to do would have to start there. There's other ways to monetize, and you can monetize for good, but right now they haven't made it a priority.
My
third tip is to everyone who has contacts with hate speech, even if it meets someone, don't let it be there, be silent, louder, because if we don't do it, we'll at some point pay the bill for it. By accident, 2 days ago, I met Richard David Precht, a fascinating man, and I asked him, what is your theory? How does it go on if we don't act against it now? And that's what he said. I think that the people out of workforce created because automation will go to the right, and there will be a lot of new power on the right. And you have seen the research of Jan Böhmermann on the Discord server. I'm a member to see what they do there. It's disgusting stuff, and we have to do something against it, how the warfare works. And because a lot of things I and my family experienced was the script was followed, and all of this has a lot of consequences for our society. People wrote me after my TED Talk that they have a chance to go to the politics with a high power position, but Mr. Gutjahr, should I do this to me and my family? Maybe it's better for me to go into the economy. I don't want to really experience this. I want to give the last words to Lenny Poser. We Skyped with him this morning. I don't have a picture here, but only his voice. I wanted to ask him, what can we as Republika in Berlin do? What tip would you give to us?
People have a responsibility today. If you see something that's harassment, if you see something that's angry, if you see something that's inappropriate, report it, flag it. Flag it as spam, flag it as harassment, flag it as bullying. It takes time to do that, but I think we all have a responsibility to do that.
Und Lenny kämpft seit 5 Jahren gegen
Lenny fights
diesen
5 years,
Abschaum.
ever since the last 5 years, sorry. Lenny fights for this. He created an organization if you look at this domain, you can find a lot of material there. There's a network of people you can talk to. Also on the Facebook page, you'll get active help from many, many helpers that have formed around Lenny. So, not the most easy topic for me today, but I'm always trying, with all the things that I experienced, that I had to experience in the last 2 years, how hard does it have to be for a person who lost his 6-year-old son and whom people slander online as an actor, and the son never existed. And since I didn't really feel good about it, I asked Lenny this morning, how do you do it? Where do you take your energy from? And this is what he said.
I think the memory of my son keeps me going, protecting his memory and his image, and I think that's what keeps me going. I think that's what any one of us would want someone else to do if we no longer had a voice and if we died. We would want somebody else our voice. So I feel that I need to be that voice for my son and for other people that ask for help.